In Ecuador, ahead of April 3rd in runoff elections, recent polls reveal Citizens Revolution Party candidate Luisa Gonzales is leading the presidential race. As part of the strengthening of bilateral relations between the two nations, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with Russian President Vladimir Putin after his meeting with his Russian counterpart. And thousands of displaced Palestinians continue to leave Rafah following the evacuation order issued by the Israeli occupation army. Hello and welcome to From the South. Amana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Ecuador, ahead of April 13 runoff election, recent polls reveal Citizens Revolution Party candidate Luisa Gonzales is leading the presidential race. In this way, to the sorted out tries by the country's National Electoral Council show a lead for Gonzales in front of presidential candidate and President Daniel Noboa. Precisely, a negocios and strategies pool of some 3,000 voters conducted between March the 24th and March the 26th showed on Monday that at 51.4% of voting intention for Gonzales. In addition, she was also leading a poll by the Pedro Cango that surveyed over 5,400 Ecuadorians, which showed a 51.9% voting intention compared to Noboa's 48.1%. It is worth recalling that President Noboa won by a narrow margin of less than 1% of votes on February 1st runoff elections, a difference in which triggered the upcoming runoff electoral process. Argentine Foreign Minister Gerardo Huerta met U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Tuesday to initiate a trade deal between the two nations, despite U.S. President Donald Trump plans to impose swift tariff on Argentina as on April the 2nd. Therefore, the minister is trying to negotiate with Washington to dodge the taxes. Argentina produced $13 to $16 billion worth of grain, lithium, and energy. And since Trump took office in January, the Milei government had been strengthening their aligned strategic alliances. In this context, the senior diplomat met not only with Rubio but also U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer to boost bilateral trade and seal a solid trade deal. In the United States, a high percentage of mixed-race families fear taking on their daily life in the face of President Trump's deportations policy. A report by the Urban Institute revealed that mixed families do not want to draw attention. According to the study, 16% of families with some kind of immigrant express fear, which increased to 26% among those who have someone with a green card, and 60% among the mixed families. President Trump priced to make the largest deportation in history, focusing on irregular migrants with a criminal record. However, this urge is growing that any migrant could be subject to the administration's aggressive measures. Meanwhile, the Trump administration acknowledged in a court filing that it had granted a Maryland father with a protected legal status and mistakenly deported him to El Salvador, adding that U.S. court lacks jurisdiction to order his return from the mega prison where he is now locked up. This marks the first time the Trump administration admitted errors when it sends 3 plane loans of Salvadorians and Venezuelan deportees to El Salvador's infamous tourism confinement center. In Haiti, Kenyan foreign forces sustained casualties after clashes with armed groups in the country. The international police and military force reported that 2 police officers were assaulted, when another is missing. The multinational security support mission has over 1,000 security personnel with a mission of restoring adequate security for the country to hold elections by February 2026. The Kenyan government has cited humanitarian reasons for its intervention in Haiti, while the deployment is also said to be motivated by a desire to boost the country's international profile and curry favor with the United States. In Thailand, rescue work continues for a 4th consecutive day in collapsed building in Bangkok after the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that had its epicenter in Myanmar last Friday. Authorities on Tuesday raised the death toll to 20, while they are still searching for more than 70 workers who were trapped where a building under construction collapsed on top of them. According to the latest official death toll, some 34 people suffered injuries of varying severity during the earthquake in Bangkok, where 2 citizens who were in their respective apartments also lost their lives. On the 30th floor building that collapsed, the death toll stands at 13, with the last victim reported on Monday night. In Myanmar, rescue efforts are being hampered on Tuesday by the risk of landslides and aftershocks in part of Burma worst affected by Friday's powerful earthquake. Some rescue operations in Mandalay, the country's second city, and one of the places most affected by the 7.7 magnitude earthquake located about 17 kilometers from the epicenter, had to be suspended on Tuesday. Efforts to find some survivors is hard-hit areas of the city, including the Sky Villa condominium, the Great Wall Hotel, and the Uhul Monastery had to be temporarily halted due to the risk of landslides and the impact of aftershocks, despite hundreds of people missing at these sites. The death toll in the country after the earthquake reached 2,253 this Monday. In Iceland, the town of Grindavik and the nearby Blue Lagoon tourist attractions were evacuated after the area was hit by another volcanic eruption. The eruption is the 11th since 2021, when the Reykjavik Janes Peninsula started its new eruption period. The Icelandic Meteorological Office said an earthquake storm started at the 6:30 am local time in the Sundsdukrud crowd in a similar place to previous eruptions. The orange-red fissure, expelling lava and smoke, quickly spread southwards, and by 10 am local time it had already reached through the defense walls north of Grindavik. The fishing town has been largely uninhabited since November 10, 2023, when an eruption resulted in the town cracking open with fisheries reaching a depth of 20 meters. And now let's take a very short break. Welcome back to From the South. During her daily press conference, the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, reminded 5 principles that have ruled her country bilateral relations with the United States. These ahead of Trump's administration upcoming tariff to be announced on Wednesday.
They have a responsibility, and we have a responsibility. For example, what the Secretary of the Treasury released yesterday is information that comes from the national coordination. Shared responsibility, mutual trust, they have to have confidence in us and we in them in this coordination. Respect for sovereignty, cooperation without subordination. Respect for Mexico and Mexicans. Those are our 5 principles with which we work with the U.S. government and in particular on security issues.
El gobierno de Estados Unidos y en particular en temas de seguridad.
In this context, the Mexican head of state also clarified that the southern border should not be the shield. In this sense, she requires a project to better address migration.
No de blindar, sino de atender la migración.
Posed to them is that the best way is to create a development hub
entre Guatemala y México. Es parte del proyecto que tenemos
where we
con
can
el
work
tren
with the government of Guatemala and our
interoceánico que llega a
government with
Ciudad
welfare
Hidalgo
hubs.
y que trabajamos con el gobierno de Guatemala para que ese tren pueda seguir por Guatemala. Y lo que le
We
planteo
have
es que
2
la
welfare
mejor
hubs in
manera, pues,
Tapachula.
es hacer un
I do
polo
not
de
know if they
desarrollo
went out to bidding already
en
or
donde
are about
podamos
to go
trabajar el
out to
gobierno de
bidding by the
Guatemala, nuestro
Secretary of the
gobierno,
Navy.
con polos de bienestar. Nosotros tenemos ya 2 polos de bienestar en Tapachula, que ya, no sé si ya salieron a licitación o están por salir a licitación por parte de la Secretaría
But
de
that would be the
Marina,
best way.
pero que esa sería la mejor forma.
Better to have soldiers in the southern border.
Mejor eso a tener, pues.
The nations of China, Japan, and South Korea unite commercially in the face of the entry into force of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff measures. According to the international media, the trade ministers of China, Japan, and South Korea have proposed a possible free trade agreement to counter Washington's high tariff. The meeting agreed to strengthen cooperation in their supply chain and engage in direct dialogue on exports. This alliance was established during the trilateral meeting of Asian nations on March the 30th, where they established measures to facilitate regional trade in Asia. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, assured that the European Union had a plan to counter U.S. tariff impositions, but the European Union will strive from reaching a bilateral negotiated solutions to diffuse tensions. In response to Trump's announcements of imposing tariffs on Europe, von der Leyen made clear that the bloc was ready to face such sanctions instantly. The European Union leaders should be united and ramp up their global trade with other partners worldwide.
Trade balance of goods, as well as on the trade balance of this confrontation is in. Our objective is a negotiated solution. But of course, if need be, we will protect our interests, our people and our companies. And I want to be very clear on the aim of our response. We think that this confrontation is in no one's interest. The flow of goods and services between us, the United States and Europe, is nearly balanced. Of course, we are willing to work on the trade balance of goods as well as on the trade balance of services. This is the largest and most prosperous trade relation worldwide. We would all be better off if we could find a constructive solution. At the same time, it also has to be clear. Europe has not started this confrontation. We do not necessarily want to retaliate, but if it is necessary, we have a strong plan to retaliate and we will use it. At the same time, it also has to be clear.
As part of the strengthening of bilateral relations between the two nations, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with the Russian President Vladimir Putin after his meeting with his Russian counterpart. The Russian president asked Minister Wang Yi to convey friendly greetings to the Chinese President Xi Jinping and invited him to participate in the celebrations of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Second World War, which will take place in Moscow in May. During the conclave, Putin welcomed the way in which relations between Moscow and Beijing are developing and points out that the main purpose of this visit is to prepare for the future visit of the President of the Asian to Russia. The Chinese Foreign Minister, for his part, stressed that the cooperation between the two countries is not aimed at third countries and is not subject to external interference.
We want to express our satisfaction with the way our relations are developing, including with the direct contacts between our foreign ministries. I know that you have such a large, busy program for your visit, primarily relating to preparations for the arrival in Russia of the President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping. We will prepare a good, full program for him.
For his part, the Chinese Foreign Minister highlighted the excellent state of bilateral relations among the nations based on mutual political trust and the rejection of external interference.
Thanks to the care and promotion of the two heads of state, China-Russia political mutual trust has continued to deepen, strategic coordination has become more abundant, and pragmatic cooperation has continued to deepen, safeguarding the development and revitalization of the two great powers and also safeguarding our common interests in major international and regional affairs. China-Russia cooperation has never been directed against a third party and will never be subject to external interference. Our relations will not stand still, but will only become broader and broader. Our nation's friendship is not oriented towards the present, but towards the longer-term future.
In this context, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov assured that the country of the world considers Russian-Chinese relations as a stabilizing factor. The Russian Foreign Minister noted that he recognized the responsibility of Moscow and Beijing to maintain close coordination in the international arena in his opening speech during the negotiations with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. Lavrov assured that Moscow will agree with China on how to strengthen their relations as well as on further coordination in the UN and other multilateral platforms in order to build a fairer and more democratic multipolar world order. Also in this framework, China called on the United States to bid on denuclearization and to reduce the risk of threat and tensions in global conflicts. Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke on the subject of national security and highlighted the role of nuclear weapons in the face of global conflicts. Furthermore, Wang Yi stated that Washington should stop insisting on ideas of nuclear islands in the world and also stop deploying weapons on other borders. Let's take a very short break, but don't go away because we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thousands of displaced Palestinians continue to leave Rafah following the evacuation order issued by the Israeli occupation army for the largest area of the southern Gaza as the humanitarian crisis worsened due to the blockade of the enclave. On Monday, the genocidal regime issued a new forced evacuation order warning that soldiers will soon resume intense combat operation, forcing some 40,000 people to flee once again. In addition, evacuation orders were also issued on Tuesday for the residents of Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and the neighborhoods of Sheikh Zayed al-Mansani and Tal As-Satra in northern Gaza. According to UN report, 20% of the Gaza Strip is already under Israeli evacuation orders, excluding buffer zones of the Sensiram corridor. The United Nations Agency for Children's Funds, UNICEF, announced that 322 children were killed in a course of 10 days as a result of the heavy Israeli bombardments of the Gaza Strip. UNICEF explained in a statement that the intense and indiscriminate bombardments, coupled with total suspensions of humanitarian aid, has put civilians in Gaza, specifically children, at grave risk. The organization warned that a number of child deaths could rise if basic needs, which Israel has been blocking for a month, are not met. Israeli army attacks on the Gaza Strip on Tuesday claimed the life of a journalist and his family. According to the Rafah news agency, Israeli drone attacked the house of a journalist, Mohammed Saleh al-Bardawil, in the known as Japanese neighborhood west of Khan Yunis, resulting in his death along with his wife and their 3 children. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, at least 42 people were killed and 183 wounded in Israeli attacks in the last 24 hours. At least 3 people were killed and 7 wounded in an overnight new Israeli bombardment of the capital of Lebanon, Beirut. This is the second such attack on Beirut since the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel came into effect last October. Residents of the Lebanese capital woke up earlier on Tuesday morning to the impact of shells that caused violent explosions in the residential building in the Mari neighborhood. The attack almost completely destroyed the top 3 floors of the building, claiming the life of 3 people, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. The occupation army informed that a Hezbollah leader was a target, following the direction of the army and the Shin Bet.
It's just another brutal assault by the Israelis, as they usually do. They are violating international agreements. It's a strike as all the Lebanese territory is free game to them.
We were at home. You know, it's Eid al-Fitr. People have finished their work and have time off.
The brutal strike took place. We didn't know where it happened, but once the smoke faded, it appeared it was the building directly facing us.
In Israel, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has resigned for his post. Israel's Channel 12 report on Monday that Smotrich resigned in a letter to Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A spokesperson for Smotrich said the resignation was a protest against Zionist Jewish power. Part of party head Itamar Ben-Gvir's requests for more ministerial positions upon his return to join the regime again. The resignations will not collapse Netanyahu's coalition regime, but it will increase problems for the Eid as the move highlights growing fractures within Israel far right after coalition. In Malaysia, at least 33 people reported injuries after a gas pipeline explosion in a residential area. A major fire broke out on Tuesday morning in Putrajaya after an explosion of a gas main. The fire, which originated near a gas station, was visible from miles away and caused the immediate evacuation of nearby houses. 3 nearby gas stations were temporarily closed as a precaution, although they were not directly affected. We have come to the end of this brief from teleSUR English and from the South. Amara Marrera, thank you for watching.